Om Tat Sat. Om Satyanandam. Om Paravak Shakti. Om, God alone exists, God alone is reality. Om, the 28th live stream teaching of Satyavedism, entitled Om, the Panchavandanam of Satyavedism, an introduction, Lssv 28. Om. Om. God has revealed and has delivered. God in the form of, God in the happening of, the Panchavandanam of Satyavedism, in God beneficence, to God in the form of the whole world. Om. God omniverse. Om. And the teachings are propagating widely. And this is to continue and spread and spread. Replicating absorbing into God consciousness. The Panchavandanam is a God gift to the whole world. Om, God in the form of. And when it is spread and propagated, ad infinitum, it is to God evolve, God in the form of the world. It leads the God transcension. It calls it forth exponentially. The implementation of God in the form, God in the happening of the Panchavandanam. Om is crucial. It is imperative that it is spread and propagated and implemented, most importantly. So this following teaching serves as an introduction to begin to absorb these 15 revelations and to implement. So, what is to occur is to go over the overview, which is revelation number 1 of the Panchavandanam. It is also referred to as the Pancha, which means the five. So, we have the tools at hand in order to begin this introduction. There are to be many, many more teachings that further expound the Panchavandanam. So it is, as of the live streaming that is occurring now in eternity, there probably is not access to be able to absorb this teaching and simultaneously to refer to the Panchavandanam teachings, the revelations, the 15. But then when upon the complete video teaching, there can be simultaneously accessing those scriptures and referring to those scriptures as the watching of this occurs. So this is already being stated. Now the Panchavandanam is within the scriptures of Satyavedism, known as Lssv, the scriptures of Satyavedism, of Satyavedism. It also is extracted into God in the form of the Panchavandanam of Satyavedism, seemingly separately. That's PVSSV, and that's 1 through 15 in the scriptures of Satyavedism. It's 100 through 115 SSSV. So it is accessible through one or the other or both, and it has its own place seemingly on God in the form of the Satyavedism website. And of course, these scriptures shall become available in book form, in books, God in the form of digital, what is called hard copy, etc., at some point in eternity. But for now, the teachings are available in texts, in scriptures, in digital form. And all of these scriptures, the 15 revelations, are hyperlinked so that there can be accessibility backwards and forwards between all of the teachings. And also the other scriptures that are referenced, that are within the scriptures of Satyavedism, SSSVs, to be referred to, that are not specifically the 15 revelations of the Panchavandanam, but the information needs to be accessed in order to refer to it. So there's reference to the 15 cardinal revelations of the Panchavandanam of Satyavedism. That's PVSSV 1 through 15. And there will be links provided to go to either directly to the Panchavandanam on the website, God in the form of the website, or God in the form of the social media, which has the full text without the what are called hyperlinks. This is speaking in more technical terms in order for that to be discerned. God in the form of all of this. Om. So it is best referenced via God in the form of the Satyavedism website, specifically the Panchavandanam section. But it can be referenced also in the God in the form of social media, such as God in the form of what is called Facebook, etc. Now, these texts are not quote, written in stone. So there are to be some updates to texts. So to pull the text out, extract it, and download it may not be the best way to access it, because then there won't be accessing the updates. Specifically, the Panchavandanam Revelation 15, which is to be frequently updated. It is the appendix to the Panchavandanam, and it is explicitly stated that it is an updatable text that might be updatable frequently, because the Panchavandanam section of the God in the form of the Satyavedism website is to have various supplementary information in order to be able to implement the teachings properly, such as illustrations and diagrams and extra video demonstrations, etc. This is all to come. So this is what would be called a living scripture in Revelation. However, it must be stated that all scriptures are actually living. So some may appear to be more seemingly solid than other scriptures, in that there are not seeming updates. But in reality, in God reality, there is no such thing as solidity, and all of the teachings activate upon consciousness and are alive, because all is alive. So there are no seeming dead texts, in other words, no matter whether the texts seem to change or not. So that being stated, that these scriptures in particular may have changes to and an evolution occurring. And there'll be many, many teachings elucidating these scriptures, because they are of utmost importance. And there are going to be many questions as to how to implement, and the proper way to implement, and the best ways to implement, and ways in which the implementation being alive itself. Then this is an ever expanding, important, extremely important to God in the form of the world. And so this is a core teaching of Satyavedism. This is the center of it, basically, and everything radiates out around it. The Panchavandanam practice and observance should also be the core of all seeming activities that radiate out around it. In other words, it is not simply another activity in seeming fiction of many activities, such as education, God in the happening of employment, God in the happening of various hobbies seemingly occurring, God in the happening of all sorts of seeming activities of a seeming life. This shall be gone into more extensively, but there has to be a complete transformation of how this is seen and the importance of its implementation. Instead of it being an activity of one of many activities, this activity is central, and then everything else revolves around it as to be revealed. So this is the divine observance of the Panchavandanam. It is the 5 obligatory ritual observances of Satyavedism. Now, the reason that it is obligatory, because if it were not stated as such, it would not get done. So it's being stated as obligatory. Of course, again, there will be all sorts of questions about that. But that stated as obligatory points to how important it is. So the 15 revelations are stated as such. The revelation 1 is the overview. And that is what it is. It gives a succinct overview of what is entailed in the Panchavandanam observances, practices, etc. And then refers to all of the other revelations for more specifics. So Revelation 2 through 6 are basically the 5 ritual observances of Pancha, or what would be called Panchavandanam, Pancha, or the Pancha. It can be referred to as one of any of the 3 and all of them. So the Bodhana, revelation number 2. Revelation number 3 is Prata. 4 is Madhya. 5 is Siam. And 6 is Sayana. So those are clustered together as Revelation 2 through 6. Revelation 7 is Shuddhi. Shuddhi is a purification practice. Then Revelation 8 through 12 are the 5 observances within Panchavandanam. There are the to be spoken of, the 5 kriyas. Then Revelation 13 through 14 Revelation 8 through 12. Let's just state what that is. So the 8 is asana, 9 is vakya, 10 is prana, 11 is mantra, and 12 is samadhi. So those are clustered together as well. God and the happening of. Then God and the happening of Revelation 13 through 14. That's prakatana and ganitham or ganitham. And those are optional practices. Optional in the sense of optional, meaning that they are not seemingly necessary to do, to occur, or that within the pancha observances they may or may not occur depending on circumstances. So it's meant the non-obligatory practices is ambiguous in that way. It means referring to both possibilities. And then Revelation 15 is the appendix, which will be quite extensive. And that's where more of details and answers to questions and all are going to be located in infinity. So Revelation 1, the overview. This is a hyperlinked text and refers to all of the other, God in the form of all of the other revelations, 2 through 15. So there's this scrolling down. There can be linking over to what is succinctly summarized basically as an introduction. So this is to be stated here succinctly. This is being stated. The Panchavandanam is the 5 obligatory ritual observances of Satyavedism, inclusive of the Panchangam yoga, aka the Pancha Satyakriya, and the the Dvisvara Kriya and the Pancha Satyavakya, aka the Satyavakya, the performance of which occurs Geturn 5 times daily, 24/7, in eternity. Om. So the Pancha, or Pancha, which is Sanskrit 5, is the cardinal obligatory observance of Satyavedism, and also serves as one of the essential integral methods of God realization of Satyavedism. God manifesting, activating in God consciousness directly. The performance of the primary ritual of Pancha is completely God, absolute God activity, Advaita, non-dual. Om. Om. God observing God as God, God worshiping God as God, God celebrating God as God, God acknowledging God absolute, and God addressing God manifestation, and God activating God consciousness. So most, God in the form of most what would be considered ritual prayer in fiction, seemingly currently in eternity, is considered dualistic. So it is a seeming person or a body worshiping God as separate, wanting God to be unified to God as much as possible. But basically, most of the terminology, most of what is considered prayer is termed, all the scriptures, as me and God relation, and the Panchavandanam is a completely non-dual observance. It's explicitly stated as such, and explicitly in the scripture, in the Vakya, in the Kriyas, basically all of that seeming occurrencing, God manifesting, is explicitly as God. Now, what seems to be dualistic prayer, etc., all of the formalities of, and all of the traditions, is actually non-dual as well, even though God in the form of those seemingly performing these rituals and prayers, etc., rites, may not directly experience that way, that may not feel that, may feel that there's a separation between, as long as there's the feeling of body consciousness and not God consciousness directly, there's a me and God relationship, and all of the scriptures linguistically hypnotize in that way. But however, despite those seeming the seeming duality in God absolute, it is still non-dual. So all of those rituals are still non-dual, because God is performing, and God is are all the tools and all the words and all the ritual itself and the seeming bodies performing the rituals, and all of that is one. So it is non-dual, even though it speaks as it and feels like as not being non-dual. So however, the Panchavandanam is directly, explicitly non-dual in wording, in action, in everything. And that is why it is one of the reasons that is so important and imperative that it spread. And it is not what would be called five-time prayer. It may loosely be referred to as such, but it is not really. This is why it is explicitly stated as 5 observances, and not prayer. because prayer has a tendency linguistically to seem to imply that there is some entity praying to God. So the word prayer can be used loosely, but to be more explicit and specific, God in the form of the word observance is a better way of expressing it. The 5 observances. So this goes on in the second section, the 5 ritual observances. So the Bodhana Vandanam, each one is referred to separately as with the word such as Bodhana, or it can be said as Bodhana Vandanam as one of the 5 Vandanam. Now, since this is God in the form of and the happening of a live stream teaching, there is observing a live stream. God in the happening of, please feel free to express in God in the happening of commenting. So Bodhana is the first observance of Pancha, and it is practiced. It is observed upon the God in the form of the apparent primary body, waking. So, as in the primary God in the form of the primary body is the omniverse. Officially, the primary body is the whole of the omniverse. But what is considered the, quote, God in the form of the apparent primary body is the one that is apparent. And all of the other God in the form of the bodies are also God myself. So, Pratyavandanam is the morning observance. And that occurs at sunrise or morning until 9 a.m. in eternity. So this will be more of a summary, and then there can be referring to Revelation 1 for more specifics. Then Madhya Vandanam is at noon or in the and then extending to the afternoon until 3 p.m. in eternity. So there is leeway that there can be observing right at the seeming time or happening that is first available to occur, and then it could be a span from say noon until 3 p.m. giving leeway, giving more flexibility of occurrence. And there are two versions of the afternoon observance. There's Purna Madhya and Ardha Madhya, which means full and half. And that is, again, for flexibility, so that if there is the ability to do the full observance occurring, then that is, there is a flow for that. And then the half occurrence occurring is what would be considered a terse or a shorter version, when there is not enough seeming time in eternity, or some seeming time restrictions that are not really reality. Om, thanks Alexa. Om, God in the form of.
I'm reminding you. Install update.
Om. And then there's Satyavedism, which is the evening prayer observance. And that is at sunset, extending into the evening until 9 p.m. in eternity. Again, for flexibility. And then Dhyana Vandanam, which is the right before the primary, apparent primary body is put to sleep, for the night in eternity, seemingly, when there is darkness, or usually in eternity. Now there are, again, for flexibility, there are a few different seeming observances. The first is the canonical observance, which is PCO. And then there is the alternative observance, which is PAO. And then there is the observance when neither of those seems to be possible due to various aberrant schedulings. And then that can be seemingly worked around, but the main two, again, are the canonical observance and the alternative observance. So then the third section of Pancha is the Shuddhi, which is the purification process, which is twofold, and that is done at before the Panchasatya Kriya of Pancha. Some of this terminology will become familiar as the revelations are absorbed in consciousness and then and implemented. So at first, some of these, because of the wording, some of the wording is in Sanskrit, got in the form of Sanskrit, and so that has to be gotten used to, and also the navigating around in the revelations as well. But when there is familiarity with the teachings and also the implementation, the observances become very easy and simple, and the flow is the flows of the observance from one seeming kriya to another basically take on well, it it all becomes very natural. So tend not to be dissuaded upon first investigation of the revelations, and the diagrams and other forms, video forms of actually showing the movements, etc., will help to facilitate this absorption. So the purification is the signifying of God, thought, speech, and action. And the Shuddhi is comprised of the Snaya and Tilaka. They're both Vrata, which is absolution, and the marking, or the sigil. So for the Panchavandanam yoga. So the Panchavandanam yoga of Satyavedism is also named the Panchasatya Kriya of Satyavedism, and it's 5 ritual performances within each one of the 5 Pancha. And the Panchavandanam is referred to as an omni-mathematical revelation. So it is also to be discerned, as there is more familiarity with the revelations, the mathematics involved in all throughout the revelations, and of course then the observances. The mathematics are particularly the occurrences of Pancha, which is 5, 10, 15, 3, 6, and 9. Those are the reoccurring numbers primarily throughout the revelations and the observances. That is also to be expounded upon, but is simply being stated. So the Panchasatya Kriya consists of asana, vakya, prana, mantra, and samadhi. So that the asanas it also consists of the seeming body asana, and also the mudras, which are forms of mini asanas, basically symbolic gesturing, and the prana, om, the dandivats, the tri-dandivats or tri-dandivats, etc. The Vakya is the Panchasatya Vakya, which has subsections to be expounded upon. Prana is straightforward as pranayama. Mantra is the japa dhyana, and there are Tri Maha Mantra, Tri, that are core to Satyavedism mantra, and that are within the Panchavandanam. And then the Samadhi is the Satyamona. Five is the Drivayar Kriya. So that's 2 supererogatory, so that's optional performances. And then again, that's the Prakatana and the Ganitham. So Prakatana is God manifesting, and Ganitham is mathematics. So these are optional performances within the observance. And each pancha has a number or a lettering that can be referred to as short. So Prata would be PV2, and Siam is PV4. So it's PV1 through 4 to refer to succinctly, mathematically, or symbolically. Not only are the scriptures mathematical in the stated, as far as the certain numbers occurring over and over, clusters, but the actual flows, the procedures of each of the pancha, each ritual is translated into a flow, like a coding flow, succinctly, almost like a formula of steps. And there's cross-referencing to the various abbreviations that comprise the flow formula. And so the flow formulas are as succinctly translating the various movements and observances or kriyas within the observances as mathematically possible, as in mathematical coding, as it were. So it's the absolutely concise, elegant, shortest way to convey the information of how the observance flows as possible. And then the various abbreviations are expounded in the other revelations. So when that is absorbed, when the other revelations are absorbed, then all there needs to be is referring to the formula of this occurs and then this occurs and then this occurs. This mathematical, elegant formula. And it is a mnemonic, basically activating in God consciousness to be familiar with. And until that is no longer necessary as well. And then it is all done, it all occurs, it is all God manifest spontaneously with no need to refer to any content that would be, quote, reminding. And this also refers to the Satyavakya, which once it is, in a sense, not memorized, but once the Jodi are absorbed in God consciousness, then there is no need to refer to the text as well. And then it all becomes completely natural. And so the revelations can be used to refer or to first start to implement the observances, and then and have that be guided by the scriptures, observances to being fully absorbed to the point where the scriptures are just, God in the form of, are there to refer back to if need be, but basically are assimilated in God consciousness. But the scriptures are very mathematical in many different aspects, God manifesting. 6 is the apakarana. It's basically the paraphernalia that is needed, or the tools that are used in the observance of the Panchavandanam. Now, it is possible that there can be observing of the Panchavandanam with no tools whatsoever, except the seeming body, primary body, God in the form of. And there may be the need to not use any tools for certain happenings, where there is seeming apparent physical disability, or injuries, etc., or there may be circumstances where there should be observances done, God manifested, but the circumstances under which that would occur would make it so that there could not be the asanas implemented in the canonical way. So those are to be referred to in the God in the form of the Revelation 15 appendix, that it will expound upon those certain circumstances and how the observance can still occur, perhaps with the body upright in a chair, or if, say, the body were in flight, there's traveling occurring on God in the form of an airplane, and there needed to be the observance occurring, that there are to be methods or further expounding or alternative flows for those occurrences, for those happenings, God in the form of, God in the happening of. So theoretically, it will still be possible for the Pancha observances to occur with no tools whatsoever. And this will be expounded upon. However, there are at least a few that are recommended for the canonical and basically the standard way in which the Panchavandanam is revealed in these 15 revelations. So the paraphernalia, the main tools, God in the form of the main tools, before going into this further, is the ashtara, which is the observance rug. That is the surface upon which the God in the form of the primary apparent body basically is that these kriyas are happening, the asanas and all are happening upon the prayer mat, the prayer rug, the observance rug. It is the Sanskrit word is ashtara for Satyavedism. There are various words that are used in other God in the form of religions and other God in the form of languages, etc. But it is called the Ashtara. And the Japamala, basically, for counting, for the mantras, in repeating the mantra. And so those are the two primary God in the form of tools. There also needs to be access to water, and for the purification, the shuddhi. So, but the minimalist, the most minimal form of the tools, other than what has just been stated as no tools whatsoever, the most minimal way in that this is observed would be the Ashtara and the Japamala. Now, if there is ability for other God in the form of other tools, then according to God manifesting the capabilities in terms of what would be considered cost or availability, there should be contemplating the list that is given, that these are not, that most of these are not mandatory items. They're simply being listed as items that would make the observance perhaps more feasible and just comfortable. Yeah. But again, there is no necessity to have these items, to procure these items, God in the form of. So, for the purification, which takes place before the kriyas, there is jala, which is water. So there is most usually accessibility, access to the water. So it's water. This list can be referred to simply by referencing the overview. So it will be succinctly water, cleanser, etc. The two is vibhuti, that is this. So it is white ash. And it is sacred white ash. And then the container, etc. for it or whatever, but minimal is vibhuti, and then there are other items listed under that. 3 again is already mentioned, the mala. So if there were no access to mala for some reason, then simply counting, simply speaking the mantra over and over again would be enough. But the mala makes it so that there can be keeping track of how many times the mantra is spoken. Then the mantra can be spoken, God spoken out loud, Om, or seemingly silently as well. That is. And 4 is the Ashtara again. That is the prayer or the observance rug, mat. If there is ability to expand that to having a travel Ashtara or a travel mat. There's the revelation. There's a revelation in the asana section that goes into the Ashtara in detail as to the specifications, etc. And the pocket mat would be, again, when there is not within the dwelling observance, seemingly, when there is seeming traveling or away from the seeming dwelling in infinity, then when there is the time and eternity for the prayer to the observance to occur, then the prayer mat, the travel mat, can be used to just provide a clean surface. And there are portable pocket mats that can be used. However, they can also have the ashtara simply rolled up and conveniently, as it is not very much in weight, conveniently brought along got in the form of a bag, a duffel bag, or etc. And then that could just be used, and then there would be no need for a travel mat, because it would just be moving the mat around, the ashtara around. Have the ashtara be mobile in infinity. So there are different, again, there are different choices involved here. And it is best not to use what would be called a yoga mat. This is not, the Panchavandanam is not a yoga, not to be confused or associated with yoga in the sense of hatha yoga, where there is all activity upon a mat, a elongated mat, and stretching of body and all of that. The ashtara is meant to have a different seeming purpose. So, and then 5, access to cell phone, tablet, mobile device, etc., for accessing the revelations in order to implement. There can be, again, a sort of guided in order to get used to and acclimatized, acclimated to these observances. There can be using of the cell phone, the digital devices, with the asanas, with the mudras occurring. The mudras may not be perfectly executed while there is need to refer to the flows, etc., the satyavatara, in order to have that absorb in consciousness. If so, initially there may be need to have the guidance and actually hold the text, etc., via the digital device, God in the form of the digital device, and pranam along with the tool. So there are various other ways in which the God in the form of a mobile device can be used. There's the alerts that, again, this is to go into the alerts for the observances to occur, that are sun-based alert, alarm, that notifications that go off via the cell phone, God in the form of a cell phone. So this is integrated in the pancha for usage, for the solar clock app, and also when there is the samadhi, or there's need for timing in eternity, as to whether that occurs for 15 minutes to half an hour in eternity. Then there can be indicating a timer to go off after that is extended and occurred completion, or God in the form of Siri, God in the form of the various what are called virtual assistants, God in the form of Alexa can say set a timer in eternity for 15 minutes, and then it'll go off or whatever. So all of this technology, God Intel tech, is can be used. And then 6, the scriptures, of course. There's the Panchavandanam, God in the form of the Panchavandanam scriptures, again to refer to specifically and to go through all of this information, God information, and also the scriptures, the Panchavandanam PV SSV, and then the scriptures SSSV for the will be considered the extra Pancha scriptures, the outside of but extending into scriptures that give more detail for certain of the kriyas. For instance, the Prakatana or the Ganitham, etc. So, and then the optional, various optional items that may or may not appeal, which would be a small whiteboard or paper, pen, pencil for making notes. It's again, these items are referred to in the other revelations within the Panchavandanam, but they're all of this is centralized. Notes, applications, virtual assistants already, robot, God in the form of robots, the Shakti Danda, which is forthcoming in the implementation, the Patra Kirtana, what is called singing bowl, God in the form of forthcoming, and the immersal, the EMRSL, which basically are the mathematical, God in the form of the mathematical reference materials, the canonical mathematical reference materials that are used in the for God in the happening of Ganitham, mathematical worship as observance or access to in God in the form of in book form, hard copy form, or PDF form, or digital form, or whatever form is to occur as this all goes on in eternity. That is expanding. That again, that technology will be updated as need be. It is, and there are some other optional items that might be included on the list, like a book stand for holy book stand for the mathematical scriptures, etc. That's all again to be updated. But anyway, those are some of the main the Upakarana Om components, the tools, the God in the form of that are used in the Pancha. But again, there should not be a feeling of obligation for trying to procure Om. Many of these items, if they would not be considered affordable or for some reason would not be available, that the Panchavandanam is flexible enough and for a very minimalist approach if necessary, so that there be no dissuasion or of non-implementation based upon item availability, God in the form of, because this can be done without any items, without any tools if necessary. Om. So this just goes on to, in section 7, the observance scheduling. Om. The reason that there are no flows right now is that the introduction cannot convey that in the way in which this is live streaming. It is to be said, but it shall be said and stated right now in eternity. Instead of waiting further into this teaching, that there are to be demonstrations of the flows, perhaps in what would be considered God in the happening of, or God in the form of park, or happening of setting, where the camera can be pointed, God in the form of can be pointed to out further to the ashtara and the primary body, etc. This avatar, God in the form of this avatar, this apparent seeming body, which is not myself because I am God whole, but the seeming avatar is to be used in and implemented used as a tool and for many different purposes. One of which is as a demonstration tool to illustrate how certain positionings, certain just all in all ways possible. This body is being put to use at whole God will for all sorts of purposes, including actual seeming physical demonstrationing. And filming and video recording, in all conceivable ways possible. So one of which will be that there will be demonstrationing of the flows, and then expounding upon that. So that is to occur. But this is an introduction. So the introduction is to go through the main introductory information, and then this will all be expounded upon. There is much time in eternity for the propagation of these observances to spread throughout the whole, God in the form of the whole world. So there will be many, many answers to questions about it, many demonstrations, many other seeming bodies demonstrating this, the Panchavandanam as well. Many seeming bodies observing. So this what has been given so far are the first images of the Pancha, which are in seeming photographic stills, but there is to be videoing of all of that as well. And then as this expands, the illustrations and the diagrams and the flow charts and all that, what would be called the educational part of these teachings, where will be straightforward, this gets done, this happens, or whatever, so that for those that are God in the form of are just beginning, as this progresses throughout the seeming God in the form of years in eternity, that this expands out to that there will be guided meditations where, say, there'll be a mobile device, a tablet or whatever, that can be put down in front of the ashtara, and then there'll be the ability to go to a God in the form of a video of Panchavandanam Prada or whatever, and click on the video of the Prada or whatever, and then on the ashtara, the primary body appearance, then proceeds to follow the visual instructions and the words going across of the Satyavatara, and simply watches and does, or whatever, in God consciousness. So that ability, all these different ways of conveying the Panchavandanam are to occur. There has to be, this is where in this implementation, as this expands, as Satyavedism continues to propagate and to be taken on, and all of this God happening occurs, there is the delegation of the various God service that is necessary in order to have to God manifest these various modes of dissemination. So this is where the God manifesting takes on the delegation of God in the form of various seeming apparent bodies that are all working toward the God service of expanding God in the happening of Satyavedism in God in the form of the world. So that is that is to come. Om, and is already occurring. Om. So 7, the Pancha, the observance schedule. So this is already has been mentioned to some extent, and there's no need to go into this further. But it is in the God in the form of the overview revelations, the specifics as to the 5 canonical rituals. And then 8 is the scripture reference list, which are all the other scriptures of the SSSVs that are necessary in order to refer to the more detailed information that is, some of this is concisely manifested in the other revelations, but the more detailed version of some of that information. So there's a list of those scriptures that are to be referred to. And then there's also the Tri Maha Mantra Jyoti glossary, which goes into the sort of like the micro mantras basically, and breaks those down in order to be referred to what the seeming God in the form of the names are those in order to refer to, like the God Sarva. Sarvam Ekam, etc. And then the appendix, simply state the appendix as being extremely important. And the appendix, then, all of the information that is continuously updated in the God in the form of the appendix, which is Revelation 15, also expands out on the Panchavandanam section of the God in the form of the website. It will be referred to within the appendix, but some of that will be clickable out into to separate continuing expansions of the Panchavandanam, the PV, SSV, say 18, 19, 20, etc. So some of that reference material is to be the additional scriptures and teachings. Then again, pertinent transcriptions, live streams, recordings, some of the information that is within this teaching, this very teaching, would then become part of the appendix and extracted to be other PV SSVs. And then again mention the animations, images, illustrations, diagrams, other recordings that say God in the form of the park recordings. And then there is when this is expanded and implemented further, then when the God in the happening in form of the Mathasrama Pitham become God manifest, then the observance of the Panchavandanam then will become regular ritual activity within the Mathasrama Pithams. That will be what will appear, what it will look like, are group observances. So that it won't seemingly be an individual seeming body in fiction appearancing with the observance occurring, but there'll be the God in the form of many seeming bodies together, all observing at once, God in the form of in Mathasrama Pithams, etc. Where there is 2 or 3 or more bodies, apparent bodies seemingly observing at once, there's to be one apparent body leading the observing, so as demonstrating in front of rows of other God in the form of seeming bodies. So as long as there's 2 or more God in the form of bodies, then that one should take the lead. And if that one seemingly makes an error somehow or other in the flow, then like the other seeming one should correct the leading body or whatever seemingly. So there's much information that is to be revealed as to implementation. So, but that is just, say, a bit of information as to how this would be implemented in the ashrams of Satyavedism, the Matashram Ramapithams, which would be the SV MOP. And that information will appear in the appendix and then expand out into the PB SSVs or whatever. This is to give some sort of understanding in God consciousness as to the expansiveness of what is to occur with the Panchavandanam as it goes out into the God in the form of the world and is propagated and taken up and as primary observance to change God in the form of the world and evolve God in the form of the world. Om, the God transcension. Om. So this is sort of a rough overview of the Panchavandanam. Now there are 13 other revelations that each one of the revelations is of utmost importance. And then the 15th again is the appendix, which is going to expand. Om. So in order to approach the flows, the code, because all of God omniverse, all of God manifestation is basically code. It's mathematical. It's omni-mathematical, and it's God Intel-Tech coding. All of it is code. It's all math. Om. So there's no surprise that in the implementation of these observances that the scriptures would be mathematical as well. Om. So the flows are mathematical code, basically. So it is easy to decode this, all right? And the coding was meant to be as simple as possible. It's actually very, very concisely, elegantly simple. So it may appear when first looking at it, though, what is this? Because there needs to be some sort of translation. So the way in which to translate it simply is to refer to the other scriptures. So, for instance, the main most of what is needed to decode these flows is in Revelation 8. So it's the asana revelation. So the asana revelation, again, that's Revelation 8. It's PV SSV 8. And again, the revelations are also in the scriptures SSSV as 100 to 115. So they're located within the scriptures, and then as scriptures in their own seeming expansive. They're of that much importance that the scriptures are given a separate seeming book to go to, a place, or God in the form of God in the form of the website section or other to go to reference all of this. So, Om, 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 Om. Om, Om, Om. So when there's ability to reference this, when this video teaching is then completed, then refer to Revelation 8, because it is pivotal. It's a core section of the Panchavandanam. So that's the asanas, the mudras, God in the form of asanas, mudras, the dandivats, the ashtara detailed specifications. All of that is within Revelation 8. So in order to decode the flows, much of the information is within this revelation. So the first section is the asanas. Om. So some of the asanas are already, or what would be considered traditionally named, known positions or whatever. So those have been retained with the wording, the naming of those asanas, just out of familiarity already. There is witnessing the commentings that are going on in the live streaming occurring right now. So there is to be answering some of the God in the form of the questionings or whatever. So it is helpful to, for the commenting is helpful, the questioning is helpful. So feel free to keep expressing God manifesting such, because it is all to be implemented. So the various mudras. One, to expand upon this somewhat, one of the main mudras, most important mudras that reoccurs in the observances is the pranam mudra. The pranam mudra. So the pranam mudra, there are various forms of the pranam mudra, 1 through 6 p.m. So the pranam mudra always is accompanied by Om. So not just mudra, not just pranam mudra, but internal Om or expressed Om, internal whatever, silent Om, whatever, or expressed Om, Om pranam. It's always Om pranam, Om pranam. Not just pranam, Om pranam. And there are so many ways in which Om pranam is used, the pranam mudra. The pranam mudra opens and closes seeming God manifesting activities, various and sundry activities. And it is used for seeming greeting of apparent bodies. So instead of namaskar, namaste, etc., and all that, which have implications of individuality, om pranam is pranaming God Absolute, whole. It is not pranaming an apparent body. It is not pranaming an individual. It is not pranaming an individual consciousness within an individual body. Om pranam is pranaming God Absolute whole. So instead of namaskar, meaning the individual consciousness within the individual whatever, no. So it's Om pranam. Om pranam is God whole within, that is interpenetrating throughout the manifestation. So whenever there's any seeming apparent meeting of bodies or of what seems to be communication in relativity, etc., which isn't, because it's within the absolute, that is always Om pranam, and there is no social conventions of this body being older than that body, or this body being more official than that body, or more important, or elder, or younger, and all of that. It's all levels, all of that. Om pranam is Om pranam, period. Om. There's no hierarchy. It's just all one. Om. God. So Om pranam. So, and there are various versions of so when pranam is, when PM, it is mudra equals PM, basically. That refers to not only pranam mudra, but the Om pranam. Just always consider that together as one. There's not there is no pranam mudra without the Om. Om. Salutationing God Absolute. And then there's going into explaining specifically. Another one is the tri-pranam mudra, or tri-pranam mudra. That's implemented within the Dandivats all. So anyway, again, this is an introduction. There is so much to God in the form of the Panchavandanam that it would take not, I'm going to say hours and hours and hours and days and weeks and all of fictional time in what is God eternity. But this is an expansive, multi-dimensional God in the form of scripture, revelation, teaching, Om. So this touches the seeming surface of all of this, and yet again, it is relatively elegantly simple in the actual observancing of Panchavandanam. You know, it seems paradoxical, but it is such. Om. And so all the various mudras that are used, interspersed throughout the kriyas. Om. So each listed, each item has an acronym. For instance, the Dhrana mudra is JM. So the first letter of each word, basically put together, is the elegant item, the variable. It's like with mathematics. There's X, there's Y, So so each mudra has basically 2-digit representational syllable in a sense. The Eka mudra, EM. So you just there's referring to that those letters like EM. The flow indicates mudra, equals EM. So that would be execute Eka mudra. So it's straightforward. It's just that there needs to be referencing to the main source of the revelation that then refers that it's referencing, that refers back to that. And then it indicates what the arrows are. The flow of mudra, for instance, there's the Satya mudra, which might be more difficult to execute here because it's about putting the hands down this way on lower other apparent body parts or whatever that cannot be displayed in this mode, but somewhat of a way of showing it would be that it's it starts with the prana mudra, then to here, then this hand goes down, then to here, one, God is one, Om, and then that drops. So basically that's dropping to this, and then this one here does this, which is basically the knowledge, so knowledge of God, Om, but that's down here or whatever. So this is not exactly the best way in order to convey, just due to the way in which this the recording is being done. But there are flows of the mudra, the mudra from this mudra to that mudra or whatever. So it would say mudra, equals, and then this would be the mudra 1, this would be mudra 2, this would be mudra 3, or whatever, etc. So it flows from one to the next or whatever, and then into the other the kriya that it's in it's flowing. Om. So the various mudras, Om, and it's all symbolic. Though each mudra is a kriya. All the kriyas, and then there are kriyas within kriyas within kriyas, and they're all like micro kriyas or whatever. It all. It's God in the form of. God has bestowed such an awesomely beautiful, just magnificent, expansive Panchavandanam upon God, the God world that is to be analyzed by God in the form of seeming other bodies that are myself, as to its perfect mathematical ballet, just awesome. It goes beyond words, actually. Om, as to its magnificence. Om, and this is to become apparent as that unfolds. Om. Then there is a section of the asanas, the various asanas that are standing asanas, sitting asanas, and reclining asanas. Most of which are referred to in the flows, and a few are seeming extras that are to be referred to in further teachings. Including the Spandalika asana, etc. There are alternative asanas that can be chosen from, and depending on how whether the primary body would like to be more still or more active. There's, for example, in the Japamala, there is a rhythm to the to Japamala dhyana, and so because the mantras inherently have a rhythmical chanting inbuilt, so then the body is allowed to, the primary apparent body is allowed to either express that rhythm or to be still, and so seemingly have a choice as to. So some of the asanas or there could be, depending on what is more suitable. For example, this can be shown in demonstration when there is the Gegara mantra, Om. So it is Om, God alone exists, God alone is reality. So when there is the chanting of the mantra, there can be, the body can remain still, or there can be Om, God alone exists, God alone is reality. God alone exists, God alone is reality. God alone exists, God alone is reality. So there can be a swaying. So that these options seemingly are within the asana as to be referred to. Then, for instance, if there's that choice of the swaying, because the mantra is rhythmical, so there's a rhythm to it, then when there's the marker bead, there gets to the marker bead, and that would be, there should be pause from the rhythm. So the marker bead mantra should be still. So for instance, if there is rhythm with Om, which would be that would be the Om mantra. So which is usually implemented with the PV1 and PV5. So that's the first upon the apparent body, seemingly upon waking and upon sleep. So that would be Om. It would be Om, Om. So the O would be O goes forward, and then the goes backwards, like Om. Or it could be still, Om, like that. So in that case, if the choice of the asana is forward, is moving, then it's Om. This can be further demonstrated in a better way. But then when there's coming to the marker bead, then that Om, and then stop and said Om, God alone exists, God alone is reality. Om, and then continue Om. So that this is a demonstration, Om, spontaneously occurring, Om. So that's an instance where the asana would be chosen either to be still or for movement. Om. And in the flow, it indicates that. It says asana, such and such, the acronym, or other the other acronym. So you just refer to Asana Revelation 8 in order to know specifically what those letters are indicating. So then there's the next section is the Dandivats. Now, God in the form of the Dandivats, again, this is all a work of art. God has created, God has manifested, God a masterpiecing. Om. It's just Om. It's so God. It's so God. It's such God beauty. Om. It's such God beauty. The Dandivats is the observance of the Dandivats is core to the whole of the observancing. Om. The prostrations. Om. God prostrations to God whole. That is God myself. Om. There's prostrating to the whole of God. Om. Not any individual. I know there are individual representations of God, and there is pranaming and prostrating to seeming forms of God as representing the whole. Yes, that is the how that should be done. As long as it is not prostrating to individual God in the form of individual persons and idols, etc., and thinking that particular form is being prostrated to. It's so it is the Dandivats. God in the form of Dandivats are prostration to God whole myself. Om. And with such reverence and appreciation of being myself, God myself. Om. So the asanas, the God in the form of the mudras, the pranam, the Dandivats should never be mechanically done. They should never just be done as if the body is going through a routine movement that is where there is not direct observancing. It should never become just a routine movement without God content, without God consciousness. Om. This is being stated specifically in reference to the Dandivats, because this is how this is spontaneously being expressed. When there is prostration, and then the full prostration of the body, God in the form of the apparent primary body, prostrating. It was prostrating to the whole of God. So during the Dandivat, when the body is fully prostrated out, completely prone, completely outstretched, and in pranam, and the pranam goes out above. It's just Om. 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 God in the happening of the Tripranam Dandivats. Om. Within Revelation 8, asana, are the Tripranam Dandivat, APA and AAA. Om. So these are flows that are specifically of the Dandivats. Om. And these flows are descriptive. And in God in the form of in words convey exactly what the various positioning of the body, the parent body, should execute. It's very detailed, and should be sufficient, even without illustrationing or diagramming or videoing, etc. It should be absorbed in God consciousness and be able to be executed just upon the instructioning herein is such as the detail. However, there are to be illustrations, and in God in the form of the appendix are links, God in the form of links to a few videos that are what would be considered general representations of Dandivats, but not that can serve as example, as general, very, very general example, but not specifically what is conveyed in Revelation 8 for the Dandivats as to the specific execution. That's just general representation. The Dandivat, the AAA, would be for ardor, say Madha ardor, which would be the abbreviated observance, where, and also for other circumstances where the ability for a body to lie prone out, extending past the ashtara, might not be appropriate in terms of the clothing not becoming not clean, or that the situation, the circumstance would be where there might lend itself to more compactness of observance, where it would just be constrained to the seeming periphery of the on the rug, the ashtara. So the Dandivat would not be full length; it would be half. So that's the AAA, the ardor. That's the second flow of Dandivats as the seeming choice for certain circumstances. That's where the head would bow. Perhaps it would appear to look like about 2/3 up the ashtara, 2/3 leaving 1/3 above the head, basically, as opposed to a full Dandivat where the body extends about another third of the ashtara out, beyond the ashtara. And then there's a section on the ashtara, the directives, specifically how to procure the God in the form of the rug, what the rug is, what the ashtara is used for. It's a clean, sacred energy surface, absorbing energy, kundalini energy that is activated within it. All seeming forms can absorb energy or release energy, etc. And so that is absorbed. And how to position it, how to position the ashtara. It's gone into specifics, not to position the ashtara in front of apparent bodies, body representations, objects, various forms, where it can be even thought of as possibly that there's worship of that form taking place. That can be done elsewhere, not in the Pancha. Various idols that would represent the whole of God. But within the Panchavandanam, it is best not to place certain images or bodies, etc., where that could be misrepresented as being a worship of that. However, this is where some of the teachings would be expounded upon. If there are seeming other bodies that want to partake in the observance along with the primary apparent body, a body of God, that is God myself, such as in the form of what is called a cat, or what is called a dog, which is nothing but God, then that is that God in the form of, say, give a name to that God in the form of myself, as Gifo Christoph or Gifo Mika or whatever, would like to participate as well, then that is God will. God will is the God in the form of the rug is the ashtara is not an item that is owned by anyone or anything. So if there is another body that happens to wander upon it, well, then that body is participating in the observance as well. As long as there can be working around it somehow. So that is possible, and then so be it. That is acceptable. Etc. How the ashtara should be cared for, how it should be folded, how it should be, the various ways in which it can be manipulated to, where it can be placed, if there can be more than one, say more than one God in the form of mala used, there can be God in the form of more than one ashtara used. This is all expounded upon. So the referencing of Revelation 8 is very, very important, and this will seemingly break the code of the flows, and it'll become very obvious what the flows, what the procedures, the code, the mathematical equationing is. And then there's the flows will become very, very useful in just referencing, say, oh, this next, go to do the, this is occurring, then this is occurring, then this is occurring, without having to basically reading, complicating what is basically is to become very simple and natural. So there is much more to of the teachings upon the God in the form of the Panchavandanam, the Satyavedism. The Vakya would be the next, basically the next core revelation that is basically central as well. All of the revelations are basically Om. That's why there has to be going through all of the revelations. There should be absorption, God absorbing in God consciousness. All the revelations, all 15. God in the form of Revelation 15, the appendix basically has the whole structure of the whole Panchavandanam, basically as sort of like a hierarchy of content. So there can actually be going to the appendix, referencing the appendix and going through it in order to see what all the content is. That might be another way of beginning the approach to it. It would be the overview and then the appendix, and then the familiarization with asana, with Revelation 8, and then the Vakya is 9, Vakya. So that's the Satyavakya of Satyavedism. So it's formally called the Satyavakya. And it can be God spoken in entirety, or in modular expression upon the various observances. So the Pancha Satyavakya is comprised of the Satyavakya Dasa, which is 10. So those are the 10 Jodi. And then the Satyavakya Panchadasa, which is 15. And those 15 are split up into 3. Again, all of this is mathematical. So these are the truth sayings. This is speaking of truth. These are proclaiming. These are proclamations. These are truth Jodi. They're concise. Speaking of what God is, directly. So affirming, proclaiming. So at each Vandanam, at each observance, the Satyavakyas are asserted as the truth self is asserting these truths. The Satyavakya Sarvam Ekam is three Jodi, and the Satyavakya Gegar seven, and then's the Satyavakya Panchadasa again, and that's 15, split into three. So those are more specific as to the first of the Panchadasa basically conveys the nature of God consciousness as being one and not individually broken up. It's just one. Yes, all of this is to be expanded upon. There is to be so much information on the Panchavandanam because this is answering to some of the commenting that is occurring. There are to be many different modes of God manifesting what needs to be propagated. So this is to occur in the various different ways in which there is God absorption. So there's the scriptures, which are what would be considered word or text based, and then there are the live streams, which are the other ways of conveying God truth. So these are different seeming modes of God manifesting the God truth. So there are other ways in which God information is absorbed, such as visually in the form of what would be considered images or illustrations, diagrams. There are ways to convey information in concise ways with what are called God and the happening of bullet pointed lists. There can be what would be called animations, like cartoon like animations that can be created that would show some of this God information, specifically perhaps some where the wording, say, of the Satyavakya would scroll. There could be God in the happening of the making of flashcards that could have the Satyavakya Jodi, like each one on the flashcard, and then when there is learning the Panchavandanam, there would be perhaps there would be some that might use the digital devices, and then seeming others that where the appealing of flashcards being held while the kriyas are occurring might be more conducive to the absorption of the information where the flashcards can have some images on with wording. All of this is spontaneously being spoken out by God as a form of God manifesting, God manifesting, God sponse syncing, God synchro-eventing, God manifest, activate, and so it is. Om, etc. Keep going here. Om. That all of this is to be God manifested. Om. And there is much what would be considered in the apparent representationing of the seeming body appearancing as delegation of all sorts of activities or whatever, and God in the form of, God in the happening of, God in the manifestation of various projecting, so that this sort of God in the form of multimedia way of conveying this information, and not just the God in the form of the Panchavandanam of Satyavedism, but of all other God in the form of teachings of Satyavedism as well. That those teachings can be continue to propagate in various forms, formationing, and then those teachings can be expanded upon in the various multimedia way of conveyance and all. So there's the scriptures, but for God in the form of the scriptures, what happens is that there are some God in the form of seeming that in God consciousness that are not absorbing text-based God information and are more open to the absorbing of video and audio, God in the happening of ways in which the information can be communicated, or may seemingly appear to only absorb video or only absorb images, and there is no seeming reading going on to be spoken of, etc. So there has to be God manifesting of all ways in which the God information can be conveyed, can be propagated, where it is not exclusive to a certain form of propagation or a certain form of conveyance. So yes, this must occur, but there must be God service. There must be God in the form of those that, and this has been expressed in the AESSSV for the what would be considered volunteering of God service to in the dissemination of the teachings of Satyavedism to God, out into God in the form of the world, in order to God evolve and for the God transcension which is occurring to exponentially continue and so that all of the seeming fiction is to be dissipated. By all means necessary. God in the happening of, the manifestation, God manifesting is by all means necessary. Non-violent, of course. By all means necessary. God in the happening of. Yes. So the Satyavakya Panchadasa, and yes, this is not only introduction to the Panchavandanam, but these are our teachings within that are occurring spontaneously. And such. So God is spontaneous. All that occurs in God manifestation basically is done spontaneously, even if it appears not to be. It is all spontaneously happening in God. So this seeming avatar can suddenly expound upon request of any God information in any context, including an introduction to this or that, and it is fine and proper. Satyavakya Panchadasa. So the first is basically an assertion of what God consciousness is. And the second module of that Satyavakya is an assertion of the inherently mathematical, the omnimathing of God manifestation, that it's inherently a mathematical expression of God. The goading. Now, can be that word can be spoken as godding or goading, and either is acceptable. Goading extends itself to the actuality that there is coding as well. So it's mathematical and coding as well. So goading, in the way in which it would be said in that way, goading would refer to coding as well. But it could be said godding also. So the goading is all ing of God, inging, because God is inging, because God is not a thing. It is the manifestation is phenomening, so it's inging. So that would be the goading. So that asserts the goading. It basically asserts the God omnimathics, the omnimathematical nature of the God manifestation within God absolute. And then the third is the assertion of the God intelligence and God intelligence technology. Basically, because it extends, the goading extends to that, to the God intelligence technology. It's inseparable from goading. So those are the three components of the Panchadasa. So the Satyavakya, the Pancha Satyavakya is of utmost importance and is central to the Panchavandanam. It's also central to Satyavedism, basically. And it is found within the Panchadasa, and the Panchadasa is found within the scriptures of Satyavedism and extracted as another seeming book or section, scriptures. So there are many other revelations, of course, that are of utmost importance. And as an introduction, there cannot be going to each one and expanding, because again, that would be hours and hours in eternity. Another central component is the Revelation 12 samadhi. This needs to be referred to. It's very, very important. Description of what samadhi really is. Satyamona. All of these revelations are to have teachings specifically about each revelation, because that deserve that. So again, this is an introduction, this is an overview. Om. Om. Again, the appendix is going to be updated and updated and updated with new information. Om, God in eternity. Just so there has to be, upon implementing the Panchavandanam, there has to be referring back to the scriptures to see if there are updates. And specifically, the appendix is very, very important to keep referring back to the appendix. And on the Panchavandanam section of the website, to refer to new, what are called ongoing new teachings on the Panchavandanam, these being the core 15 revelations. But again, there is more. Om. There are undoubtedly going to be many questions, many questions that need answering. Om. This could go on and on and on, but there should be there should be some some restraint for now and eternity. Om. Now. Om. So there should be speaking on some more technical aspects, or what is maybe to come directly. Seemingly in eternity as God eventing, God happenings. So there's continuing of teachings on God in the form of God in the happening of the Panchavandanam, which is so utterly important to propagate. Om. The Panchavandanam implementation is to change God in the form of the world. Om. So there are more of the teachings, live stream teachings, of course, extending to other teachings as well, but this will be core. Om. And then there's the commencement of the satsang, the satsanga. Om. This is to occur imminently in God eternity. It takes place seemingly in infinity, on the platform, God in the form of social media, Facebook, which is God happening. Yes, Facebook is God too, in the manifestation, All of this is what appears to be mundane, ordinary functioning is extraordinary God manifesting. It cannot be expressed in mundane ways. In the words cannot express mundanely the God happenings that occur. So what seems like what appears to be occurring is not really what is happening. It is not expressed that way, except through ignorance. So when there is saying such and such an event is occurring on Facebook, in fiction, know that that is not true. It is God that is manifesting these activities seemingly in God manifestation. It is so transcendent that what is conveyed, what appears, it cannot be expressed in relative ordinary language. So God is manifesting the happening of what is called God in the happening of satsanga, which is basically a gathering of truth, of speaking, of what appears to be communicating, but there is God speaking to God about God, God interacting with God about God, God whole expressing in this manifesting for God truth information, so that there can be dispelling of ignorance. And there can be gathering of celebrating as well. God in the form of celebrating of God life, the one God life. So there's appearancing of the satsanga occurrences that are a form of live stream, but it appears that there's more interactivity, and there can be what are called questioning and answerings and speakings and whatever spontaneously is occurring. So it is what is called the platforming of what is called a Facebook group, whatever that is, of Satyavedism group, of God gathering, celebrating God, dispelling ignorance. Seriously. God manifesting the dispelling of ignorance. what is called in technical terms, Om, the texting, the exchanging of images, the exchanging of seeming words, Om, is the beginning, that shall be the beginning of the satsanga in the Satyavedism group. And then that is imminent in God eternity. That is to happen in the next, what would be called, few days, God willing. Now, always, 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 when speaking about God manifesting, if it's about a particular seeming eventing or activity, that there should always be saying, God willing. Because anything can occur. Anything can occur. Because it's all God spontaneously happening. So anything can occur. So not to say God willing is a form of, is almost ignorance, because it's projectioning that something is going to occur. And if that is left out, or of speech or thought as God willing, if that is left out, then that implies that it's going to occur, and it's a projection into the future that would be fiction. So there's always the saying of God willing. There is God manifesting, there is God manifesting intentioning, and there's God manifesting that, and that propagates out into God consciousness, and God in the form of the seeming world. It goes out in, and there is transmitting and receiving. However, the whole of God has to be willing. The whole of God has to be willing, not a part. So again, this is another teaching. Teachings within teachings within teachings. Spontaneously occurring. So, the Satya Satsanga is to commence within the next couple of days in eternity, God willing. And then it expands into what would be considered from text and images to live video, such as this. Only what appears to what looks like God interactivity. And that is to occur in God eternity, early in what is called August in eternity, by what is called calendaring, etc. All to and God willing, the technology is to support all of that and have that occur without technical difficulties. Om. At least as this has actually seemingly again, another God in the form of technical meta information is that there has been upgrading of God intelligence technology that is conveying this God information and for propagation. There has been upgrading of these capabilities, as might be apparent, perhaps. And there is to be further upgrading to an even higher level of technology, God Intel Tech, God willing, as it is, as God signing indicates that it is to expand when and that shall occur, God willing. Om. There is to be. So the technology that is powering these teachings is upgraded, and the technology that is powering the satsangas is upgraded as well to commence in eternity. And then there is the third aspect, which is that at some point, as God's signs indicate, there are to be what are called God in the happening of the webinars of Satyavedism. Then there's the technology available already for that to occur. And that, again, would be interactivity, seemingly. The God speaking to God about God, God communing with God about God, God's celebration of God life, the webinars, the various ways in which the information can be disseminated. That can be done through the interactivity and the multimedia as well. And that is to occur when it is God manifested, according to God's signs. So that is some of the God information, the more technical aspectings of this ongoing, of all the ongoing God information about God reality. Om. 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 So to be the next Lssv is to be soon in eternity. Om. Om. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Paravak Shakti. Om Satyanandam. Om Tat Sat.